When I was young, Parwana, I knew what peace felt like. Stories remain in our hearts even when all else is gone.
My family is in a desperate situation.
Girl, stop when I tell you!
I'm going to find Boba.
No, you're not.
I'm going! There's nothing you can do to stop me.
Maybe if we think of it like a story, huh?
Is it a happy story or a sad story?
Just wait and see.
According to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, everyone deserves security in case they cannot earn money themselves. Also, mothers and children deserve extra help. To us, in the more wealthy countries or the more free countries, this seems absolutely normal. Why even mention it? But in other countries, it's the exact opposite. People will take you for a fool if you even suggest the government helping someone out. The movie The Breadwinner from 2017 shows the story of a young girl living in such a country. In 2000, Deborah Ellis wrote the story of a young girl named Parvana living in Afghanistan under the Taliban regime. When her father is arrested, she has to earn money for the family. The 2017 movie stays close to the book, managing to make it feel familiar and new at the same time. Parvana lives in Kabul, Afghanistan, somewhere around 2003. The Taliban governs the city. Women are forbidden to go outside without a male chaperone and covering their faces. All female education has been put to a halt. When her father is arrested, Parvana is the only one who can pull off being disguised as a boy, so she goes out to earn her daily bread. Woven throughout the movie story is another story told by Parvana. Although I usually like that trope, the story didn't really make sense until the end, and even then the tie with what was happening in the real world was very small. It is a good way to keep the viewer interested during the slower parts, though. The first part of the movie is spent introducing us to the main characters and how the strict rules work. Once Parvana's father is arrested, the movie focuses on Parvana's struggle being the one person her whole family depends on, and her getting used to being in the street. Most of the plot in this part is seeing Parvana become stronger and growing in confidence. The end of the movie comes suddenly, just like the planes that all of a sudden show up above Kabul. Although this twist came out of nowhere, this is appropriate considering the circumstances. Nobody could have seen it coming. In the book, the ending is left open. In the movie, it's twice that. After a magnificently overwhelming climax, the characters have not yet quite reached that happily ever after stage, so the viewer is left to speculate what's going to happen next. I think this is a very powerful message. We see our beloved characters doing the right thing and still failing to completely meet their honorable goals. It sends out an important message that even though the outcome of making a good decision may not be great, you should still do the right thing. Another thing it teaches us is that life is hard. Sometimes, even though you did everything right, things don't end up the way you wanted them to. Thankfully, the movie does end on a positive note, which is just enough to make the ending not bitter, but more like sweet and sour. The protagonist, Parvana, is an 11-year-old, but still a real role model. She has all the cheekiness and stubbornness of a preteen, but mixed in with that is a real love for her family, and a courage anyone would be proud of. I liked how the movie didn't make her seem like an adult in a child's body. I mean, she may be outstandingly brave, but it is still believable that we're watching an 11-year-old on the screen. Parvana's older sister and mother aren't quite as annoying as in the books. They actually appreciate what Parvana does for them. And although Nuria, her older sister, is still quite bossy, she isn't all too bad. It's quite clear to see that the two women are strong but have been beaten down by a world that hates them. Parvana's younger sister, Mariam, was left out of the movie, and it's probably because she didn't have very much plot relevance. I didn't even remember she was in the book until my younger sister reminded me of it. Parvana's younger brother, Hussein, was so cute, and I loved him, and his voice actually sounded like it was spoken by a toddler. Parvana's father is a rather stereotypical old guy who, tells the stories to keep the history of his country alive. The only difference is that he actually has to work for his family. He's not just a spiritual, but also a physical necessity. Parvana's friend Shauzia is a fun-loving, boisterous girl who wants to be free to do what she wants and has big, lofty dreams. Her happiness gave the movie a positive note when everything was being really sad. She gives the movie a positive tone whenever Parvana is feeling down. Her jokes and happy smile added some light to the very dark themes. Parvana's other friend on the street is Razak, who is actually working for the Taliban. And that's really interesting to see, because on the one hand we have this sympathetic character who is working for the most unsympathetic group you could think of. And it's so cool to see in the movie how he's struggling with his beliefs and eventually chooses to do the right thing, even though that very well could get him killed. Another small thing I really liked about the characters in general was that voice actors had actually taken lessons to make them sound as if they came from Afghanistan, so they had accents. And that's really nice, because in movies, if you have an accent as if you came from the country, even though you're speaking English, it helps my brain realize this is actually happening in another country. Contrary to when everybody has this really typical American accent, it makes it just quite a lot harder for me to realize it's in a different country. So that really helped me to be able to place the setting. Before we get to deep stuff, let me say first that the scenery and animation in this movie is beautiful. The color tones are warm and cold in the right place, and everything looks so realistic. Having spent 4 years of my life myself in a third world country, I immediately recognized many things, such as the shabby buildings, mangy dogs, small market stalls, the dirty streets. It looked very real, everything. Parvana's story, the one she tells, is also absolutely cheery and adorable, but it still manages to make the monsters of ancient folklore, giant saber-toothed tigers and giant elephants, still seem scary. Another thing is the detail is very beautiful, especially in the background with the embroidery and the wood. It was stunning. This movie has very strong messages for children, teens, and adults. It teaches courage, perseverance, loyalty, and kindness. It demonstrates that doing the right thing is more important than seeking your own gain. Another thing that's family. Family is also very important in the story. Family members are never left behind voluntarily, and even when they are gone, the other members of the family keep trying to help them. This movie, being about the Taliban, yeah, you can expect there's going to be quite a bit of violence. On the one hand, the directors have spared us quite a bit of gore by cutting out the part where the thief's hands are cut off and where Shauzia and Parvana dig up bones. On the other hand, in the parts where they did include violence, they haven't pulled any punches. Bruises, beatings, and blood are all visible. At one point, Shauzia and Parvana discuss child marriage. Also, Parvana's father being separated from his crying family could be too much for some young children. So the rating on this movie is PG-13, so it would be a good idea for parents to watch the movie together with their children to see how they're keeping up. It will probably also lead to quite a few questions about the abuse of women and the use of violence. Lastly, the main characters are Muslims. This isn't made very evident, but they do pray at some point. If you want to go there, this could be food for interesting discussion about, religion and the definition of Islam. The Breadwinner is an impressive movie. It makes you both happy and sad at the same time. The visuals are stunningly beautiful, the messages are very strong, and they're great role models. The plot's biggest character arcs are those of Parvana and Razak, and it realistically shows how the good comes out in both of them. The climax is overwhelming, both warming and wrenching your heart and leaving you with conflicted feelings. You do need to be careful because there is quite a lot of violence, and the movie doesn't shield us for blood and bruises, and the themes are very heavy. Despite all that, The Breadwinner is a beautiful movie that is definitely worth the watch, and will have you thinking for days.